Sorry.
Oh, no problem.
Go ahead.
Thank you for coming. It's great to see such a wonderful turnout. As fans of the show, you know that as much as we had incredible acting performances, we also just had incredible visuals. And a lot of where those incredible visuals came from was the special effects work of MindWarpFX in Toronto. Some of us were fortunate enough to get to tour it, and I have some fantastic pictures of me with various grotesque things on it, and you can even see some of that behind Francois. We asked a bunch of questions. We collected questions on Twitter. You can also ask questions now, although Twitter questions asked earlier will have priority. But I'm just really excited to get to talk to Francois and Tenille about their amazing work on the show. So did you guys want to say hi or anything before we get started?
Yeah, hi. Thanks everybody for coming in and, you know, checking this stuff out and asking questions. And still, after all these years, the interest is mind-boggling, but it's cool.
You know what it is? It's that Netflix is showing it amped up a bit so people can actually see things.
Yeah.
Whereas before on NBC, it was so dark you couldn't see anything.
Yeah, that's true.
I think that's plus, you know, everybody's loving it because it's fabulous. But that's the other thing is that people could see more detail of your work.
That's great.
And I think we're, of course, just getting new viewers now that they can, that we have all this free time to watch things, and we've got seasons 1 through 3 all on Netflix, so you can marathon them again.
I think also that it's a show that it's so well made and it's so good that you can also rewatch, and it's, you know, it's something that you can see over and over again because of the visual, because of the writing, because of the stories. So.
Yeah, and because the narrative is so complex, I know every time I rewatch it, I notice things I didn't notice the last time. I mean, it really does benefit you to pay attention and continue to pay attention. All right, we've got some great questions. User 4round asked, were there any Hannibal special effects pieces that NBC standards and practices vetoed, and you ended up just having to go back and make changes?
It wasn't vetoed per se. There was certain things that we shot, or that Chris shot in second unit as the second unit director. I always try to provide as much as possible. So you can shoot as much as possible, and once you have it, you can decide what you want, right? It's usually standard that you will shoot more than you need and try to cut it the way you want it. And then if something gets vetoed or nixed or whatever, a lot of the surgery, the verger surgery and all this stuff was a little bit too graphic. So I believe that's the reason why there were so many tight close-ups on things, just to still see something, still intrigue, but not have the full visual where it's like it's too much.
I'm gonna add something. There was one thing that I believe we built that never got shot, Francois, because of a Boston bombing or something. So we did build a body, and because there was some real life situations happening, it was too graphic to shoot. So
is that talking about the kid?
Yeah, so when in real life, there was I can't even remember it, but there was a bombing at a school or something, or somebody shot a mass murderer, shot a whole bunch of kids, and this particular episode
it's related to kids.
Related to
kids, yeah. So I guess the whole
wasn't it Oof? Then there was the episode Oof or Oof.
Oof, yeah.
Oh, I guess the whole episode got
not egg, yuff, or what? I don't know how they spelled it.
I believe it was shot. I believe it was shot in a subdued way. It was just never shown. The whole episode was never aired, if I remember.
I think
we did shoot the body. Just they couldn't show the kids being killed. They could show the aftermath, and it was shot, but it was just never shown.
So the whole episode was vetoed.
That's right. The whole episode was not shown.
I think it's on the seed. I think that it's on the disc though. On the
yeah, it is. It is
Blu-ray, whatever version.
Just not broadcast.
It was just bad timing for showing it. You know, when it was time to air.
Okay. How long did it take you guys to put together the murder totem pole?
That's the Tenille question.
I'm heading over to the totem pole now.
I think it was about.
Oh, there it is.
I remember now. Was it a week, Francois, or was
Yeah,
it a little bit
I
more
think
than a week?
I think we had about 10 days. It's very quick. You know, we had, by the time they dropped the actual telephone pole that it had to be built on, we had about a little less than 10 days.
Well, I think that was designs. I think we didn't get a design till about a week before, maybe about 10 days before, till we got a design. And then people were like, everyone's freaking out on how to figure it out on how to get it up. And like, how are we going to install this? How are we going to do this? And I think there was one person on set that said, they just got designs today. How are they going to make this? But,
yeah, we knew what we had to do with a totem pole. So, I mean, we had very clear directives in terms of the amount of, I guess, money that they wanted to spend on this. So certain decisions were made prior to starting based on that and based on time. And as they were getting ready, as they were getting the telephone pole ready and the rig to, you know, build it on and everything, we started pouring limbs. Again, we had a good idea of what we wanted it to look like. So we started pouring the limbs and getting all of the pieces ready. And once the piece of wood came in, we had everything pretty much ready to go, and we had a plan. So it was pretty much, it's like a puzzle, you know, but knowing how you want it to go together. So we had all the pieces in a pile, piece of wood came in, and then we started building, and the rest was all cosmetic with work and paint and things like that.
I have a question about the totem pole, if I can interject here. You've got it behind you.
Parts of it, yeah.
Okay.
Most of it.
That was it. That was actually the totem pole when it was on the beach.
That was all the limbs, most of all the limbs. What it is we had it in storage. So when it was in storage, it was taking an awful lot of space. The piece of wood is no longer there. We just put it on something much lighter than a telephone pole, and then we installed almost all of it here. Just get it out of storage, make some space, and looks cool.
all the limbs come untied, and there were like just stacks of arms and stacks of legs and stacks of torsos in the basement. So pretty much it just got rebuilt up and retied. So it's not like it comes down as a unit, as I'm sure you guys saw on set when they showed images of him building it. So everything is an individual thing. So there were just all these limbs on shelves, and we're like, we need the space. Why don't we just rebuild it? And so it's definitely not exactly like it was on set. It's also on set, it was 360. And then here in the shop, it's only built, you know, up until the wall. So there's no backside, and it was just kind of like everyone hands on. So it's not as finessed as Francois, you know, as he did the majority of the building and the tying for when it went to set. So it's like a similar version of it for sure.
Right.
The idea was to have The idea was to have it all ready for them to pick it up, start as the main unit all built, and as they're shooting, him building it up would just simply start taking it apart backwards.
Okay.
Cool.
Just for simplicity of shooting.
Someone just asked if the whole thing was silicon.
That's where the cost issues came in. Originally, the idea was to make everything out of silicone and have the biggest thing to me was having all the stumps showing the meat and all the stuff, all the gore, all the detail. We wanted to really show that and emphasize all of this. And the idea was that the bottom part of it had all of the more rotten corpses and kills, and as he went up, had the freshest one at the top. And because of the silicone was counterproductive in terms of costs, and we were told to, as much as possible, for the older ones, use polyfoam and latex and things like that, which is the old tried and true materials. It's cheap, it's fairly quick, but it just doesn't look the same. But in this case, it didn't matter. And then we kept the silicone for the higher part, the last third of the totem pole, where the pieces were supposed to be fresher.
Right.
But again, it was a cost decision.
But I suppose you always have to be ready for the, you know, the DOP or the director to say, it needs to be taller. You know, we need 6 more bodies. Was that ever going to be a factor?
No, because they gave us they knew what size they wanted, and they dropped it off, and then we filled it, and then we had enough stuff to enough pieces to fill it.
Enough ornaments for the Christmas tree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a fun piece. It was really, really a fun piece because there was minimal thinking going into it, but the outcome was a lot of work, but we knew it's not like, holy shit, how are we going to do this? It's like, holy shit, how are we going to do it in time? But we knew what we had to do. And the final piece was really nice.
Hey, the guy on the very top,
Yeah.
you know, let me grab that picture. He really does look like the actor. Did you guys take a cast of him, or?
Yes, we molded him. We molded his body too, or did we have a double body, just his head?
We used an old Maddie body, Francois. Okay. So yeah, we just had his head.
We molded his head and put it on. We used the mold we already had to create the body. This is again it's a time issue.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's go ahead. Of course, I've lost. Get on screen. So our next question is Ipsy Anonymously asks, "What's the grossest item you've ever produced?"
Pardon me?
Cello guy? The grossest.
You know what? I actually thought about this because I saw the question earlier. And the only answer I can come up with, it's not the grossest thing I've built or I've done. It's how badly things got rotten on set. And then you have to use it to shoot it. And that's the gross part. So as an example, you go to shoot something on one day and they don't have time. And then your bucket of slime mixed with pablum and blood sits there for 2 weeks in a makeup room that has no air conditioning. So when it's time to shoot and you open it, you can't help but wanting to throw up. And that's the worst part because you don't think about it. You're busy, you're doing other stuff. You don't think about the bucket, you know. And there's a few examples of those where, you know, the bar factor is way up high, but not because of something we built, or it's because of a residual of, you know, a product or something that's gone bad. And I'm not the only one that has those stories. If you look throughout history of makeup effects, especially the old days where they use real intestines or things like that, there's bad stories. So grossest thing for me, there's nothing I've done that was really, really gross. Everything I do, if somebody goes, oh my God, that's the grossest thing I've seen, to me, it makes me happy. So it's not, I don't see it as a gross thing. I see it as a success, right? But real things like that smells, something you didn't wash, that body that's been there full of blood, and all of a sudden the flies are in there and you have to wash it 2 weeks later and it stinks. That's gross to me.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, if you have to take it back to set, and any actor gets a little whiff of the smell, then you know you'll never live it down. It's always, do I smell that? I can smell that.
No, it's silicone and things like that don't go bad anyway. It's the blood, it's the liquids, stuff. The fluids, all that stuff.
Are these questions Hannibal specific? Is it like grossest thing on Hannibal or grossest thing ever we've made?
I'm curious about grossest thing ever. Go for it.
So if I were to, I guess it just actually occurred to me now, rather than the real factor, we did work on a hospital show, and I think when we had to do some research of some stuff, and to me, gore isn't gross because we all know it's fake when we're doing it, but there are like some larvas and that had to get squeezed out of someone's body in these like huge pustules, and we were actually like making all these things. And when we had to watch the research, I was like, I can't believe this is disgusting.
Yeah, but
like,
the research is gross, and the video footage that we saw is gross. But what you've made on set while you're shooting it, it's not gross.
Well, we don't get grossed out, but I think in a whole, like to me, that would be like, it was the grossest thing for like even to watch while doing it on set, because that. But I don't know. It's not Hannibal specific, so it's all right.
No, but I know what you mean by like maggots, because I would have to make because nobody wants to eat maggots, of course. So I have to make a lot of fake maggots. So I have to watch a lot of real maggots. I mean, film or, videos of it. It is really, really hard to watch that stuff. I know what you mean.
We've extracted maggots out of, we make up with real maggots underneath where people squeeze them out and pus and all that. And again, I don't find it, I don't find it disturbing because it's not real. The maggot is real, or the mealyworm is real, and you can't step on it. You have to take care of it. So it changes everything about how you look at things. Looking at a real piece of footage of somebody squeezing or pulling a worm out of themselves, not my thing. I won't watch it, but I didn't make it. So
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, a couple of people asked variants.
Sorry.
Sorry. A couple of people asked variants on this next question, which is just what was the most challenging thing to build for the show, both design and execution stuff.
I don't know, Tenille, if you want to take one on. Take that one on.
Beverly Cats, really. I'm pretty sure, Francois, I'm sure you feel the same way. The pig was hard, the horse was hard, the horse had all these elements, the pig had all the elements, but Beverly Cats was, maybe it's because it's my personal favorite, but to me that was a challenging week.
See, I would answer it very differently. I see as the most challenging to me, the cat's or Beverly's body was, again, it's one of those things where we knew exactly how we wanted. Well, I knew how I wanted to put it together. So it wasn't a huge challenge. To me, the biggest challenge was when we had to make these two bodies for the same episode, where time wasn't there, where a million things weren't in place for us to execute these two bodies well.
That was the most challenging episode, but that you're dealing with two different builds.
Yeah, and that to me is what I see as challenging. Everything else, like the Beverly body, to me was, it's not that it was challenging.
But the challenging with the Beverly body was also the time, right? We had 7 days from when we had her in the shop for the body cast to when we had to set her up on set. And that was challenging. So I think that was the only time, or the only effect, that we never had she was never alone in the shop, in the way morning crew and night crew, all through the night, tag team out. People go sleep as other people are coming in. The only way to get it done within time, right? We had a month, it wouldn't be as challenging. No?
Yeah, no, absolutely. But again, I see it. We had a plan. To me, the Beverly body was very much clear cut in terms of how it was going to be built. So yes, absolutely challenging because no time to do it. But to me, it's a lot easier to get something done when you have a clear view of what it's going to be, as opposed to, okay, we have no time and we have two to make, and we're not really sure what it should look like. Right. So, and that was one of the problems with the second body. With the other one, it was just sort of, it was a vague, weird sort of thing, right? Nothing very.
For the record, what Francois is talking about is the one episode, I believe it's season 2, episode 6, with the tree man, and then we also had the security guard that's hanging from the ceiling. So that was 2 bodies in one episode, just so everyone understands what he's.
The tree man was the worst thing.
So the tree man, yeah, and if we only had the tree man, it would have been great, but we had the
if we'd had time on the tree man. But I had to do all the internal flowers, because they were meant to be, well, internal organs. And but I didn't have time to dress it on set. I had to send somebody else. She didn't know anything. I guess she didn't grow up with the Invisible Man or something. She didn't know where the organs went, and I think that it was just a nightmare. It was out remember, it was out at the airport, and it was like 80 below. Were you on set?
We were too busy in the shop building that other.
Well, this is the problem. I wasn't there either. Yeah. It was
chaos.
It was chaos. That was the worst day. That was the worst day.
I believe Tony went to set it up, and they had to do it with their own headlights with their cars on, and just because I think there's a little bit of confusion about that particular day, and So it was difficult, but whatever, it got done.
It gets done. People love it. You know, I look at it and I see the things that didn't go right, but
Yeah, it's
everything we make, it's always.
I know your eye immediately goes to the flaw. Never mind. But people love it, and it's a lot of people's favorite because it is so glorious. It's a glorious concept.
It was a big piece. It was a big piece,
Yeah.
but I believe it was a little bit rushed.
Okay. Well, Pipsqueak's Ghost asks, I'd love to hear about the process of resetting a scene or a prop that gets particularly bloodier or messier as it progresses.
I missed the first part of the question. Could you repeat that?
Oh, sure. They were just interested in the process where something is getting progressively bloodier or decaying or something like that. Like, how do you handle the process of making it bleed?
It really depends on what it is. If it's on a person, usually it's either a makeup change or colors or things like that. If it's on a prop, either you have a few different versions or you actually change it on set. Again, let's say for a particular gore part where somebody's getting cut in half, we have a full body where you start cutting, you start the scene as a full body. As you're cutting, you go in between the takes and you start destroying the body yourself. You start cutting a little more. Very, not often you'll use life blades or life things to cut things. So you have to do it yourself, and you do it progressively on set. So depending what it is, if it's a character, if it's a zombie, it's a body getting destroyed or things like that, you build it and with those in mind, with the end product in mind.
Mm-hmm.
Remember that time we had a heart, Tenille, and they decided when they were halfway through shooting that they wanted it to beat. Remember that? We had to rope and intestines around it and blood, of course. And then you had to go somewhere quiet and literally hollow it out so that you could put a bladder inside it to make it
Make it beat like a real heart. Yeah, we had a prop heart, and then they decided they wanted to pump. So yeah, I just went what I do in the shop. So
yeah. Tell me you'd really rather do that in the shop. You really would have rather have that decision made 2 days earlier. But people, that's the whole idea. That's why it's so interesting. Film is such an interesting collaborative thing because everybody brings their stuff. And most people are seeing it for the first time, and it's inspirational. You think, wow, I love this. I love that heart you made, Tenille, but what about if it, was throbbing on the plate instead of, yeah.
I do. Masha Boeva from the chat asked, in making all these tableaus, were you more interested in the aesthetics or anatomical accuracy? What was your priority?
I think for these kinds of pieces, it's aesthetics first, because it's you always walk into it to see it as a unit, as a visual, and then when you get a little closer, you need to incorporate a little bit of the anatomy. I mean, we always sort of try. It's not. I don't spend hours and hours looking at, where particular, veins or things like that will go, but where organs go, where things go as a general rule. And then you sort of, follow that rule. And once you have a piece, usually you try to get the full piece and then you go in and finesse as much as you can before you have to take it away. But always make sure you have something to shoot as opposed to concentrate on this. You got to make sure you have your whole, piece.
I'm gonna have to say it depends who you ask. Like Francois, I would say Francois is more important for him to get the insides right, but that's where he spends a lot of the work. And then for me, it's the,
But as a piece, as a whole big piece, as a tableau, as a things like this, like we need to make sure that everything is sort of there, and then you sort of go in. If you're making one thing, it's a little bit different, like a body or one head or one makeup or something like this. But if you have, the snail guy with the wings opening in, with everything around it, with the candles, with the, there's a lot involved. So it has to all work together. And then you always, even on set, we're always there trying to finish things up and tweak and make it better. And, because that's the time given. You have to bring your piece, you have to finish your piece. And then as much as you can, all the little finessing happens in between stuff. You run in and, holy shit, we forgot this, and just go in and paint it or fix it, or, whatever time is given, you take.
Yeah.
All of it.
Well, following up, speaking about aesthetics, LT was asking, they were curious if there's any particular visual artists that you drew on for your work on Hannibal. They mentioned Damien Hirst as a possibility.
No, there's nobody that I'll go around and look through images and look online and things like that if for inspiration for certain things. But again, for this one here, it was fairly, we always got a little bit of direction. We got, sometimes a lot more direction, sometimes less direction, but there was always a specific things with look that Brian wanted. So it's not like you could stray too far from.
That's about Brian's vision.
Yeah. If there's something I really like, but it doesn't really match, it doesn't matter how much I want to incorporate it into this. It's just, I can't. But no, I don't have any particular artist myself that I just go and seek out. There's always somebody that says, hey, you should check out this guy or this woman or this artist. And I like that. I like to go see, and I like to see what kind of, stuff they do. But definitely it's nice to get inspiration somewhere else when it's warranted. Yeah.
Okay, cool. We were asked, Betsy Tweeter, what were the mechanics of putting the actor inside the horse?
Tenille, you want to take that one on?
The mechanics of
I
don't know. It depends what you're referring to. So I mean, the horse was built hollow, and we had a test fitting with her at the shop, or was it just, or did we just put a friend in?
No, it was a test fitting with her. I mean,
Okay.
to me, the biggest concern was always comfort. I mean, we had a naked person inside a horse that is essentially built out of, aluminum, steel, silicone, foam, all kinds of things. So you can't have somebody crawl in there naked and have a piece of spring or a piece of steel or something coming out and cutting them or hurting them or whatever. So comfort was definitely a thing that we had to think about, and also giving enough space, even though she was a stunt woman, giving enough space for her to be somewhat comfortable. So she's in there with breathing apparatus, so air is one thing, but now you have to think that you're crawled into this 150-pound, 200-pound piece of silicone that's heavy on you, and you're being zipped in. It's, you know what I mean? And then a pile of guts pushed on you on top of that. So it was all these things, but it's all about comfort. It's about her comfort and her ability to, withstand in terms of, how uncomfortable it would be. But she was a trooper. She did really, really well. And it was cold. It was freezing. And she did quite well.
It was amazing. She really was. I mean, one of the things was on set that when we were getting her in there, I mean, it's only, having her completely covered, females only, dealing with her and gooping her up and everything, right? And just the fact that she was comfortable enough to do this and, be also super uncomfortable in there, as comfortable as we tried to make it, was just, it was really incredible. She was an awesome woman.
Yeah, I think a great follow-up question for that would be, is it harder or easier to work with props and these effects if there's still a live person involved?
Well, it always is. Again, it's if we had just a body in there, I wouldn't have to worry about breathing or comfort, or you only have 5 minutes of air, hurry up sort of thing, right? But definitely every time there's a person involved, or especially if there's a gag involved where there's cutting or things like that, it's you need to be aware of what you're doing. You can't, let's use a real knife because it will cut this. Well, no, because it's attached to a real person, and you may most likely cut this person. So you need to think about, how do you achieve that without anybody getting injured?
One of the things that, I'm sorry, I'm interrupting. One of the things that I can't remember where I think it was a Zoom panel that we did with Martha and Brian and Janice and Loretta, and somebody said that the Pez dispenser head, Dr. Sutcliffe, was that was the one thing that made Hugh Dancy have to leave the set. That he had an issue with that. Do you remember that?
No, I'm not aware of that.
Okay.
I am not aware of that.
I don't think either Francois and I were on set for that day.
It was a body, it was just a body that was laying there, so we didn't have to be there for makeup or anything like that. No, I have not heard that.
Why don't you bring it over, Francois? It's sitting right behind you, right?
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to see if I can reach.
Just happen to have it lazing over on this sofa. Oh my goodness. Well, he looks much better there than he did. He looks happier somehow than he did on set.
Yeah, but this is a good example of what you were
talked
talking
a couple times about the really short timeline you had for these. So how long did you usually have between when they told you what they wanted and when it had to be ready on set?
It really depends on, it really depends where they place it in the schedule, unfortunately. So if, let's say, we have a shooting schedule of 12 days and this scene is the first scene up and because of location, they absolutely can't change it or something, then we're stuck. We have very little time to build it. But if it's a studio shot or they can get the location for a later time, then we get a little bit more time. But it's usually within that episode that we have to have it ready, unless it's extremely isolated as a shot, and then we could do it as a pickup shot later on. So it's always usually to try to shoot it as, especially if actors are involved, right? So you don't have a choice.
A lot of big stuff's usually 7 or 8 days.
Yeah.
For a lot of the big stuff. So and that's always pushing it. So it's usually, I think there's only one time where they wanted a ridiculous turnaround, and Francois said, there's only one time he said, I can't have this for you.
It was the bear suit.
I don't know, they wanted it in like 4 days or something. It was bizarre by the time we got a design. So it was just like, it has to go on a person, it has to move. It's different when it's just a prop, right? Like you said.
It was not the actor.
Yeah.
This this what you're talking about?
Yeah, that is what I'm talking about.
Yeah, that's quite the apparatus you got going there.
And then it has to be worn by a person. I mean, obviously in these pictures, he's not in there, but you know, and he had to run in it and move in it and tackle and stuff like that. So it was, there was a lot of elements going into that. And then the designs also, you know, they were trying to figure out exactly what they wanted it to look like. And by the time they figured it out, yeah, it was like 4 days. They were just like, what? No, that can't happen. So thankfully, Francois said no.
Yeah, we ended up using just parts of things that were ready, just so, again, there was a location thing, so.
It kind of made it more authentic.
Pardon me?
It kind of made it more authentic, that it was kind of put together and
Yeah. Oh, that was the idea, right? It was a suit that he was, you know, that he's built himself, and so and again, it was going to be slightly different. Brian came in at one point and saw what we had and actually really liked the look of it. So we ended up omitting a lot of the covering on it. That would have hidden, that would, you know, been hiding all the bones and all this stuff.
More skeletal, more stripped down.
Yeah, I think the idea is because he's working in a museum, he's restoring these skeletons and everything. So it made sense that he would have had a bone suit sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And great follow-up for that. Ipsy Anonymous asked, what do you usually do after filming with these pieces? Do you store them? Do you sell them? Do you destroy them? Do you reuse them, recycle them?
I don't sell anything. I am one of those people that I don't, I don't sell anything. It's a legality thing for me or whatever. And sometimes the studio takes some of the pieces back for auctions. Most of the time, I put it on display and it helps generate more work for us. And sometimes they get destroyed. So sometimes on set, they get destroyed once you're done shooting with it. Sometimes they get destroyed over a period of time. If it's a piece of foam as opposed to silicone, or the old style silicone, it gets hard and brittle. So once in a while we do recycle things we do go through things and then just cycle, get rid of it if it's old. But otherwise.
The dumpster outside your studio must be very interesting for your neighbors.
Sometimes. Food delivery is always interesting. We've had people run away to the neighbors asking to call the police.
Oh.
Yeah, but most of them are reoccurring, so they know us now. So the same people coming back.
Strong stomach. So, and yeah, so we've answered that one. If Brian just said, you figure out a murder tableau, free range, do whatever you want, go nuts. Is there a design you can think of that you'd really love to do, that you think would be fun to do?
You'd have to give me a little bit of a context. There's about a million morbid things
ways to die.
Yeah, just like, yeah. There's so many things you could do. And I think that's the hard part too, is deciding what you want to land on, right? So that's why you somewhat need a story to build this tableau around it.
So we'd have to give you at least a hint or something.
Yeah, a little bit of I have ideas for pieces, for single pieces and things like that. But as a tableau like this, I think it needs to be built around a story of some sort. Because yeah, there's so many things we could do artistically with like gory things, still making it look really cool. Yeah, ideas are limitless.
Definitely has been some stages where, I mean, there was one time to do with the angel wings, which, I mean, I think I've said this before, maybe, I can't remember to who, that we were out for lunch and one of the writers called Francois. So as he was writing, he needed to know, how should I write this? What can be done? What can we do? And just had Francois's input on that. And I think that happens a lot with Francois and many shows that he works on, where, you know, the meetings of, you know, he will give his ideas, you know, the director will say one thing and then Francois will run with it. And they're like, yeah, let's do that. You know, so, you know, he just will still make it his own. And that's also one thing that I remember Brian Fuller saying at one time, you know, they'll give Francois a design and, you know, Francois will start it and then Brian will just say, okay, now just put like the Francois flair on it, you know, like just come up with your own thing within that, and really, really trusting Francois, you know. One of the great things that I saw was Brian's trust in Francois, because they didn't have to see it before coming to set. They just knew that it was going to show up, it was going to be good, and they'll be able to shoot it. And I thought
it's a huge plus for us not to have the tension of somebody going constantly, I need to see this, I need to see a test, I need to see this, I need to see this. It's like,
oh, especially when it's only partly done. You think, you know what, it's not finished.
yeah, but not only that, if you're given 6 days to build something that you would want 2 weeks, giving tests and showing and stopping and constantly getting approval slows down the process immensely. And not only that, what happens is, because you're given this choice, so it appears that you're given a choice, it's like, oh, it'd be nice if this was a little bit this way, or this was a little bit that way, or if this was a little higher. And it's like, at the moment you're staring at it, you can say that, but in the grand scheme of things, once it's done, you will not notice that. But what you'll notice is that it's not finished now because we're changing this.
Yeah,
right?
and that's where they never did that to Francois.
Yeah, and that
was amazing.
Yeah, and that is extremely flattering for me, for us, and it doesn't always happen. And I think we were very, very lucky that it happened for this, because again, what we had to build and the time that we had to build it, it's difficult, right? It's difficult to please everybody. So they said, this is what we need it on that day, and then we show up and they like it. So
Have you ever worked on a show like Hannibal where you had to create so many things so quickly on such a quick turnaround?
Another one like Hannibal?
Yeah.
Yes, once last year.
Okay, what was that?
It was the second season of The Boys.
Oh,
Okay.
ouch.
And
It was tough. Second season of Boys was tough.
yeah, it was extremely tough, and unfortunately, it could have been different if things were done slightly differently, right? I mean, I think people tend to forget that what we do is very much hands-on, and it's not like we could sit at the end of the show and do it in post on a computer or whatever. It's hands-on. You give me 3 days, I can do something in 3 days. You give me 6 days, that'll be twice as good. And people don't understand that. Like, I've had people say to me, I've had producers say to me, you're telling me that if I give you an extra week, it's going to look better. And I'm like, undoubtedly. How can you not imagine that it will look better if you give me more time to do it? Right? More money doesn't necessarily help. But more time always does. Right? So.
Yeah.
I think you had, Brian and Martha just loved everything you did so much. I think that was a really special environment for you, for us too, for everybody really.
Yeah.
But especially, they never miss an opportunity to, sing your praises.
Yeah, and again, it's extremely flattering, and it boasts your ego a little bit, right? It's really nice. And the nice thing about this show also is that it was really well thought out in terms of what they wanted. It wasn't just gore for gore. It was meant to be pretty and visual, and that's fun. It's a step above. We got to shoot this guy in the head, or we got to cut this guy's arm off, or whatever. It's something a little bit more. It's still gore. It's still some scary parts or whatever, but it's still it's prettier.
It's a universe away from just gore, though.
Yeah.
To make it beautiful is the polar opposite of what it is, and that's why they love you so much, because you can bring that beauty to what is actually horrific gore that should make us all run, but we don't run. We go closer and we go, oh, I can't believe that. I got to get a closer look at it. It was always fun. Good. It was always fascinating seeing your stuff on set. Even if it was the horse was spent a week outside the women's washroom. I don't know why. Why did you pick it up? I always tripped over that horse a bazillion times trying to.
I always remember the other horses freaking out when they saw the horse, the real horses.
Yeah.
It started screaming when we brought it in.
Yeah.
No. Poor things.
Very interesting.
So what kind of backgrounds do you guys both have that you got into special effects? Is it art school or more of an apprenticeship sort of situation?
I don't have anything. No. To me, it was just, as a kid, I love horror films. I love horror, monster, like just horror, anything, monsters, all this stuff. And it went from being just interested in, reading the stories or looking at the comics or whatever, to picking up a Fangoria and seeing that there's a career that you can actually, there's people making this stuff, right? Somebody makes this stuff. And that's what actually got me going. I was like, oh, I need to learn how to do this. So by yourself, back in the, early 80s, there wasn't so much, especially where I came from. And then I ended up seeing Joe Blasco makeup school ad in a Fangoria, which was one of the first schools around for this stuff. And they said they accepted me, and I went in, and that was it. I never looked back.
That's amazing.
But that was the extent of my background. I just I don't have any art background. Everything I do is pretty much self-taught, and whatever I was taught in school. And
Very cool.
Amazing.
Tenille?
I started a little bit later, but I did go to makeup school here in Toronto. I guess not here, I'm not in Toronto right now, but in Toronto. But I was always interested in the fine arts in high school and things like that, and hands-on and building more than 2D. And I actually had a friend who went to Vancouver and was in the film industry, and he suggested it to me, and I didn't realize it was something that you could do for a living. He just said, go do prosthetics. And I'm like, what? I don't even know what that is. He said, go make dead bodies for film and TV. And I'm like, yes, that's exactly what I want to do. And then from then I just started researching it. I mean, I'm from a very, very small town, which is actually where I am right now. There was just no information coming in like that. So the fact that he had to go to Vancouver and then told me about it, then I started my research, then I started my working to save up money, and then going to school when I was about 23, 24, maybe 24 in Toronto. So I did go to makeup school with the goal to work in shops and work in prosthetics. But I had a minimal art background, but just loved art my whole life. Like just loved getting dirty and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So is it horror? Was
That's been
it
interesting.
also interested in horror, Tenille? Was it the horror thing, or was it just the prosthetics?
Yeah, actually, I mean, not necessarily horror movies, because even from a young age, I never, I would never watch horror movies. I'd watch them and I would even tell people I like it, but I like it for the art when people die. I would literally say those. I'm like, I don't get scared, but I find it like interesting. And I've always had like, sort of like love for the macabre, right? Like, so I just am very, very drawn to like darker, weirder sort of things. But oddly enough, I don't do a lot of the gore, as Francois is a master at it. So I don't really, he'll show me and I'll help out, and if he's too busy, I'll take over some stuff. But when he can do it, I want him to do it. And then now I kind of more finesse the realistic looking stuff. I do a lot of the finishing, but I also do the technical stuff like the mold making. And then, we figure out together exactly like how we're going to go about making stuff. But as much as I love, the gore and the horror, but I'm not gonna, he's great at it. So it's awesome to be a part of it. And I'm very, very lucky, for sure.
So speaking of the prosthetics, in addition to all of those amazing murder tableaus, the actors had to have a lot of stuff done to them. What were some of the hardest prosthetics to do on the actors or to the actors?
So are you still thinking?
I'm trying to think what was hard. I mean, I remember a bunch of little bleeding rigs and things like that.
I'll remind you.
All right, go ahead.
The verger cutting off his face was one of the hardest. Remember?
Oh yes, yeah. But that was a gag. That was like a.
But it was a full makeup.
Yeah, it was more than a makeup. It was funny because I was looking at pictures of that last night, and in retrospect, it should have been almost done in 2 stages, and or maybe with a fake head even. It's very, very difficult to add multiple layers to somebody to create depth, even to create a layer that you want to cut off and not make them look bigger than they are, So it's one thing, let's say you have somebody who's extremely thin or extremely gaunt, you can add layers. But for a performer who's like, got a round face or more full in the cheeks or whatever, and adding all of these layers, it was quite difficult.
There was an element of visual effects helping us out, sort of.
Yeah, they were going to try to thin him out a little bit, but again, in retrospect, the way I think that it could have been done slightly different, but again, everybody's in this one particular little room and they're trying to shoot all of this stuff out, and it's it's quite difficult to get it all done. So if I remember correctly, again, there's a time issue there.
Michael Pitt as the person was just absolutely amazing, by the way.
Yeah, he was great. He was absolutely
I did
great.
love working with him.
But again,
Yeah, that's a really intense scene.
yeah, again, as a performer who has a full face and he had like full cheeks, it's very difficult to add all this layer. It's almost easier to get a body double that is extremely really thin and then put Michael's face on him. But then it's not him acting. So
Yeah, his acting is what sells everything.
exactly,
right?
exactly.
I think I sent over a bunch of pigskin and marzipan and all kinds of stuff too. They were, I think they ended up sticking a bit of marzipan in for some of the close-ups, and
For the
he
dog,
was eating it too,
for him, yeah,
for him to eat.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. The dogs had little pieces of meat stuck
Oh,
on him.
that's right. And the dogs were eating too. Like, oh, it was everybody was having a festival of
Special effects and meat and
Yeah,
marzipan.
I think we had a combination of Janice's.
The whole meal happening on the face. Well, there were, of course, also the fight scenes. How hard was it to rig and accomplish the makeup effects for that final fight between Will, Hannibal, and Dolarhyde?
A lot of that was very much just very physical in terms of the fight and continuity with blood. And then for us, the difficult part is to actually take out an actor right in the middle of the scene and then stick our piece on very quickly while everybody's tapping their foot going, are you done? Are you done? Are you done? And why do we see this line? And why do we see this plate and all this shit? So that's the difficult part for us. But otherwise, it's all usually storyboarded. They know exactly what they need to get. At one point, we get, let's say, Will, and then we stick his piece on with the knife. We shoot that, and while we shoot something else, we go clean him up. So the choreograph of the fight itself is one thing, but to get it done is also a whole other thing, right? So everybody's like just ready to go. Everybody's standing around, ready for their changes, and it's pretty intense fight scene too. If I remember correctly, it was over a couple of nights, and yeah, it was big.
And we would shoot right until the sun was coming up too.
Yeah.
I
remember the last one
we
was
were fighting daylight for sure.
Yeah, I'm not even sure how fighting daylight when the sun is up is relevant.
Pretending the sun wasn't there, and we were
Yeah.
still yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But it was
FannibalFest, we
cool.
visited that, and it was so fun to see, what looks like this amazing, crazy cliff. But the house is just a little bit of
Nothing.
Yeah, the cliff is actually in Newfoundland. Newfoundland.
Oh, okay. The actual cliff.
Wow.
Yeah, the actual cliff is in Newfoundland. Hannibal should go there. It's gorgeous. But it's just
Put it on the list for next
there's no
FannibalFest.
lovely house and no red wine and stuff like that.
A couple of people have asked about the blood that you use. Do you make your own fake blood? Do you have a favorite fake blood? Do you have a fake blood recipe?
We make our own simply because it's a lot cheaper than buying it and just dumping it on the ground. And not only that, it's a color I've gotten to like over the years. It seems to work for us. There's definitely some better blood out there. There's some awesome blood that somebody called me for a huge order of blood to be shipped to Ireland. I was like, you guys should go to the UK and talk to this guy. His blood is awesome. But yes, we make our own blood, and we supply a lot of effects companies in town because, again, the stuff that we use a lot. It gets,
How much?
spent it on the ground.
How much blood do you think you made for Hannibal?
How much blood for Hannibal? I don't know how much. I don't keep count. I mean, for the boys last year, we made, I don't know how many gallons. We made 500 gallons of it for the whale scene. So it's it's a lot. We make our own. I rarely go out and buy blood unless for a specific actor or something like that.
I don't think Francois was selling blood back on Hannibal. He was just making it for himself. But since then, he does make his own blood and sell it to a lot of different shows, a lot of different makeup people, wardrobe people, effects people in Toronto. Sometimes he ships it to other provinces and stuff too. But it is something that
we started. I started making my own blood for Saw, just so the continuity of the color would be the same. And I just kept making it after that.
Do you sell it like by the gallon or by the,
We sell it by the gallon or by the pail, like 6 gallons at a time.
Is it edible?
It is edible.
about $100 for a gallon.
It's the old-fashioned formula. It's just corn syrup, food coloring. It's environmentally friendly. It's not toxic.
Yeah.
But I mean, the movement towards other products now is happening because corn syrup is sticky and it's uncomfortable and doesn't work on silicone. So now there's much better products happening and being developed. And like the FX Smith blood is incredible. You know, if I always tell people you want to buy blood, I would check this blood out. It's awesome blood.
Expect you also have to be very careful labeling it to ship it anywhere else.
Yeah, and that's why against with ours, there's nothing toxic in it. It's basic old style formula, and that's why we can sell it for cheaper. It's very difficult to buy a gallon of blood for $150 and then open it and pouring it on the ground.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you're shooting or you're at work or whatever. I find it difficult to spend $150 on nothing and just dump it, you know. And that's what has to get done.
So for you, I'm sorry, EJ.
No, go ahead.
One of the things I've wondered about is people sitting for casting, where you're casting their body, and just like Beverly, you did that with her, I guess, to make the slices. What's that process?
Well, I see it as homework before you get to play. It's everybody that gets a makeup, unless it's a very generic wound or something like this that we can pull off the shelf. Anyone that gets a specific makeup that has to blend their skin or that has to be, you know, really intricate or whatever, you have to start by a mold. You have to cast them, you mold them, so you have something to work off. So for the Beverly body, it was slightly different because we were duplicating her body and slicing it. For a makeup, we cast the actor and we get a plaster version of it. And then we work off of that pretty much like we have their head in the studio working on them.
Did Mads lay for that sit or stand or whatever for the Peking Hannibal?
For the Peking Hannibal, he didn't come in at all. What we did for Mads is we had a few faces of him. We molded him a few times for the Wendigo masks. And so we basically took his head and just poured up a body that from a mold that we had and just pieced it together and fabricated it.
Mads did come in for a mold. It just wasn't specifically for Peking duck.
Yeah, it was for the
from something else to use for the Peking duck. But he did come in for a full life cast. He did sit. He sat very still, very wonderfully, and like you're just almost like, are you okay in there? Like, it was just just.
It was for the two faces for the Wendigo, so the angry face and the normal face.
And he came in later for a whole head, I believe, too.
For what?
He did come in later for oh no, we just did a whole head then.
His arms?
We did his hands also, yeah.
You never know when you'll need a Mads Mikkelsen bust for pretty much anything, really. Multi-purpose. Really. So, actually, A. Jones in chat asked a question that I'm actually really curious about, which is, were the sets on Hannibal as dark as they seemed when the episodes aired? Because if they were, it seems like you guys would have been stumbling around doing stuff.
What isn't it? Janice just said that they're showing it a little bit brighter right now.
It's really quite a bit brighter. You can see a lot of detail. Like before, you know, you'd be watching it and you think, just, is my TV working? Like what? it's all just dark. Like you
Yeah,
can,
no, this is obviously when we're shooting it, we have proper lighting and
Yeah.
stuff like this, and then the lighting gets adjusted later on, and it's just yeah, so that comes a little bit later. The fact that they shoot it dark maybe sometimes has to do with the fact that they can't show certain things. So just by darkening it up, they can still show it without having to see, having to see everything, all detail, which could possibly get, not banned, but, having to remove it or cut it out or whatever.
Yeah.
So
It was dark on set. Like, I mean,
it is
sure-
dark. It is
Yeah.
dark, but I mean, when you're working and doing stuff, obviously you're going to get light. And if they can't
Well, I
get
have a
you light, you
headlight.
get a
I have a
flashlight.
headlamp. Yeah, like I usually work with a headlamp on, and so because like what I'm doing is small detailed stuff and fixing, then you need to be able to see, and no one's gonna bring me a light, so it's I got to be prepared, flashlights and stuff like that. So it's just how we kind of get around on set. I don't know.
No, absolutely. If we have the proper light to work, but the way they shoot it, the way they present it, they could shoot it bright and then tweak it later in post and stuff like that. So it's somewhat irrelevant to us. If we can't see and we can't fix something, or there's a makeup to fix on set and it's pitch black, we're like, "You guys, we need light. So please work light." And somebody will bring us a work light. And but yeah, in general, it's fairly dark on set.
Okay. So it wasn't just all After Effects.
No.
It's Stephen Chappell in chat is asking for expanding mouth blood. What do you use for compression, expansion?
Expanding mouth blood, meaning
Yeah, I'm not sure what that means, but
oh, like
let's give that.
spit blood if they get
Yeah,
knocked in the face and then they have to spit blood.
yeah.
oh, or for, I mean, if it's just a mouth, usually it's just you put it in the mouth and you spit it out. But if it's for a gag, or let's say the Abigail / throat gag, or the Hannibal / throat, the fantasy / throat, and all this stuff. It's essentially, it's a blood rig that's pressurized with a tank that is covered up by a big prosthetic that covers up the makeup. I mean, the rig. So once it's time to let it bleed, it's essentially push the trigger and then push the blood out.
Was the Wendigo a real actor, or I know the Wendigo rising out of the river was just a statue, but what about the Wendigo in other scenes?
Is he a real actor?
I was gonna let you take that one. Brent.
They put the Wendigo head on.
There was a real person in there.
He was a performer, yeah.
Okay, so it was just
We had a performer, and then we had the standard static Wendigo that was used for a lot of stuff because he didn't really move. So every time we saw him, he was sort of there. So it ended up being a little bit of a standard to have the bust on set, and then where we can use it. But absolutely, there was a performer that would suit up.
Mm-hmm. I don't envy him that outfit.
No.
But, so, were there any pieces you made that just ended up not showing up on screen? Maybe because not the whole thing was cut, like that detail was cut or that part of it was cut?
Oh, trying to think here. It happens a lot, but on Hannibal, I don't remember.
I'm gonna go on a limb and say most likely, and we probably don't. It is nothing extremely big on like a tableau we made or something, but there's tons of little stuff that if you don't see it, it's just kind of part of the job, right?
Yeah, I
Like,
think
want it
they
on-
were really good about showing a lot, but they were like the pig C-section and all this stuff. They showed it, and you need to pay attention to see the knife going in and the blood coming out and all this stuff. Everything was shown, but it's sort of a little bit subdued, just like the surgery for the Verger surgery. It was shown, but in a way that it's not going to get cut out. So for this one, they went in and tight. I don't remember anything that was not, besides that one episode, I don't remember anything that was this shit. We can't show that. There's no way we can show that. I don't think there was anything that offensive it would have been.
And nothing superfluous. We
Yeah.
used everything.
Yeah, everything was there for a reason. You know what I mean? It wasn't gore for gore. Like there is some. I know there's some things that get omitted because it's not necessary to see or to show, and it is gore for gore, and it gets cut out. But it's not the same with this.
When you were doing all those prosthetics to the actors, was there an actor that was like your favorite to do prosthetics to when it was?
Oh, they're all very
especially
good.
into it, or?
They're all very good. Everybody was very good. Mads is awesome, extremely professional. Everybody was great to work with.
I really liked Abigail Casey. I'm trying to remember.
Cassie.
Yeah,
Casey.
Her name. What's Abigail's the actress's?
Isn't it Kate?
Casey.
Casey Roll.
Hey, thank you. It is Casey. Okay, so I mean, I really liked her. She loved, like, she's like, yeah, blood. I got my neck slit. And she was just so stoked. No, like, you'll get over this. Like,
Really a cast of her ear.
We did have one at one. Yeah, we did.
we had a whole head of her. So yeah, that very well could be. I'm not sure.
I would assume we would have used her ear.
Raul loves to complain about how horrible his prosthetics. That took him 7 hours to get his burn suit on.
Well, Raul just kept on getting
Many things.
destroyed time and time again. The poor guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he had some of the most intense ongoing prosthetics.
Yeah.
No, he put up with a lot. He was a really cool guy. I mean, the burn suit, we did it because we wanted to save time. So it was literally like a full piece suit, but it was generic. So it was a little bit tight for him. So it was somewhat uncomfortable for him. Again, to the amount of time we had to build an entire full body burn like this to reuse a few times or whatever, we put it together, fabricated it, and then yeah, he had to put up with it. He's very good though.
Poor guy. Poor guy.
Honestly,
Wow.
there he is.
I think his biggest complaint was like, my hands are turning blue.
Yeah, from being squeezed.
Yeah, from the suit being too tight.
Yeah.
Ugh. Poor guy. It's like a cartoon character. He just won't die.
Yeah.
Were there any effects where you thought you were going to do it with a live person and then ended up switching over to, completely a prop, or the reverse?
Go ahead, Tenille.
Well, I mean, the judge would be one of them. So the judge was going to be a real person up until the Friday, and it was shooting on a Monday. So we got a call saying that they don't think they can hang this man and CG the top of his head off. And then, so we went to set to mold him on set in our prosthetic trailer, and then his head and his hands. And then we made it over the weekend and went to set on Monday with this. We already had the brain and the heart done because we were prepared to supply that. Yeah, so we just made that over the weekend and then put it on one of our foam bodies and showed up, and everyone seemed pretty happy. And then the other one, Francois, do you wanna say about the other one? I know you know, so.
The other one would be the Firefly guy. Yeah, the Firefly guy at one point, Julian was going to be an actor in a costume, and then wardrobe took over it. So they built the outfit for it. They did some stuff, and then they tested it, and I think that they weren't quite happy with the result. So we did get a phone call from Brian to see what we could do for the next day. And, unfortunately for the next day, we can't do anything, but they ended up buying us a week to build the Firefly Man. And so it went from a real person to a prop body that had to, it was the praying position, raising, the wings opening up, and all this stuff. So that was actually that was a really fun build for us.
You know what? The Peking Hannibal was going to be Mads Mikkelsen.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And then I
Oh.
said, no, I can't, I just couldn't. I mean, I would have loved to, but to ask him to lie there for like, I don't think they realize it's going to take me 3-4 hours to lay him out. And then he's got to have all this sticky syrup all over him. I couldn't do it. You know, Martha said to me later, she said, "Are you crazy? He would have loved it." I thought, you know what? He wouldn't have loved it.
You could have still
And I think
that.
then, we had to ask you guys to come up with a whole body mats fairly quickly.
Mads also wanted to be the Wendigo, and they wouldn't let him because they're like, "No, we can't do that to you." He's like, "No, I want to be the." He wanted to do it, but then they had to like cut it off. I think that's right. Is that right, Francois?
Yeah, but I mean, again, if he's going to be in a suit running around in the woods and all this stuff, they can't spare him, and they can't also take a chance he's going to trip and break his leg running in the woods, right?
Exactly.
Wearing a mask.
Not like being on a table of fruit covered with glasses. Like nothing really bad's going to happen to you.
Yeah, but Mads, that's the kind of guy he is. You know, when we did the iris point of view, and he's on the top of the silo and all that, he wanted to do it. He's like, I'm going up. It's me.
Yeah, he went right up there.
So that's the way he is.
The iris was done with actual people, right? Those weren't casts. Those were actors.
They're actual people, yeah.
Mm-hmm. But you did do that horrific.
Yeah, we did a bunch of tie-ups. Yeah.
That was
that to me was one of the worst scenes. I think just because you can emphasize with him when he's pulling himself out of that.
Yeah.
But that's a fantastic and terrifying effect.
Yeah, that was the whole episode was fun. That was our first episode in season. Was it 3? 2.
First
2. And I remember walking into the studio while I was invited to take a look at the choreography of all these bodies laying around into this iris, and I was like, man, that's gonna be interesting, because we were supposed to make them look like they were all sewn together, and a lot of that sort of went away because you didn't see it, but very interesting to see a lot of bodies.
A lot of
bodies.
Bodies covered in KY jelly.
Yeah, very warm in that room.
Yeah, it was warm. Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of body heat.
Yeah.
When Brian first reached out to you and you first started getting involved in making Hannibal, what was the moment when you realized like what kind of a show it was going to be, that you were going to be doing these crazy tableaus and effects and things every single time? You know, that Brian had this wonderful vision for it.
But the way it started was sort of impromptu. Like I went in for a quick meeting with a PM about availability, and I'm like, yeah, that'd be cool, I'd be interested. I didn't really know anything about it, and then I was asked to come back and meet the director, which was David at the time, and I sat down to meet the director, and then we just went right into a meeting about the first episode and what they needed and what we had to build. And so besides the first episode, I didn't know what was coming. So as the episodes came out and the scripts were coming out, I started realizing what it's all about, which each episode had something very specific, very special in it. So
what I found was interesting was as we would make everything for the first season, the way we would make things on other shows, we would make these things and we're like, they can't show it, it's TV. They won't show it, it's TV. So I think when we realized what we're really dealing with is when we watched the first season and we're like, oh my God, they showed everything. And which changed our perspective for the second season and the third season. Because we're like, you are going to see it. You're going to see everything. They're not going to shoot around it and imply gore. They're showing the gore. And that was like, to me, that was a game changer at least.
So when you knew you could go there, wherever there was, you could go there.
Well, everything has to be perfect because because the camera's going to see everything.
Yeah, yeah. And normally with network TV, they wouldn't show this stuff. There's no way. So, cool.
Yeah, it really is extra surprising to think that this was on a network show, with scenes like we're looking at right now with Cello Man.
I know it's so
So.
weird coming into set and seeing stuff like this. Oh my God. You know, bodies everywhere with things stuck in them, impaled bodies everywhere. And perfect. You know, you'd be like right up, you know, you'd put your face 6 inches away from them and think, my God, that it looks real. They were amazing. Just, I know everybody says that, but amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm sure there are projects that would have kind of one image, you know, one of these big crazy death things instead of just, and one per episode, 2 per episode. We got another one coming. You thought you did 1 body this week. We're doing 8 next week.
No, and it's great because chances
Right.
like that don't come often, right?
Well, that's the other thing too, is for the writers and for Brian, for example, for Brian Fuller, the chance doesn't come along where he can just throw out ideas and he knows that it's just going to come right back at him twice as crazy as he thought, which is like a dream for him to not be restricted by what his people can do. I mean, you guys showed him that you could do anything that he could dream up, and it just made everything expand that much more.
Yeah. And it's amazing because having somebody write cool stuff like this as opposed to run of the mill. I don't know how many freaking knives in the eye I've had to do over my career. I don't want to do knives in the eyes anymore. There's got to be another way to kill somebody, right? And Brian thinks it up, and it's cool.
Yeah, another bullet. No, it's not another bullet. Or if it is, then you have to do Raoul with the weird.
Yeah. But if it had been for you guys coming through the way you did in such a stellar way, I'm sure he wouldn't have had felt the freedom to just go crazy. And the guys in the writer's room too, you know, dreaming up all this stuff with your feedback. You think you're just throwing off things, you know, parameters in a meeting, but they're actually drawing ideas from what you're saying and saying, oh yeah, we can leap off that and do this.
Yeah, and I mean, that kind of gave it a gravitas and a reality that you saw these things that were just insane, ridiculous, like the Beverly slices or something like that, but they looked so beautifully real that you could have the emotional reaction you needed to have to them because they looked real, they looked honest. It was, you know, incredible work. We did want to ask, obviously a lot of Fannibals and others are hoping for possibly a season 4 if Netflix picks it up now that Netflix has the rights. Would you guys be interested in going back to it if there was a season 4?
I would, absolutely.
Just give you a call and you're in?
Yeah, I mean, it's always about availability. I mean, if you physically cannot do it because of the dates, then it's too bad that somebody else gets lucky. But if you can do it or squeeze it in or make something work, then absolutely. I mean, it was a great experience. You know, it was a lot of fun. And funny enough, last year I was driving by the studios on a regular basis because we were shooting there for something else. It's a little bit nostalgic, right? You drive by the building, I'm like, man, we spent a lot of time there, and it was fun. It was, you know, as difficult as it was still a nice experience. Right?
One of the best in my
experience. You can be on a job and you get paid well and the food is great and blah, 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 but the job sucks and it's not fun, right? This was a fun job, and it's too bad that, you know, it went from, I had heard from 7 to 5 to 4 to 3 seasons, right? And I would have loved to be on for 7 seasons.
Yeah.
Right? Because the bar keeps going up. The bar keeps going up. And that to me is fun. It's like, where am I going to fail? Where's the wall that I'm going to hit? I hope it doesn't come, but it may. But that's always the nice thing, right?
Yeah.
Well, now Brian's had years to think of crazier stuff.
Exactly.
God knows what he's got ready to go now.
Yeah.
This time, but with 30 people.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And Janice, what about you? Would you be on board for season 4 also?
You know, there would be a mass murder if they tried to go forward without me. If they thought for 1 minute they were going to go ahead without me, I'll tell you, there'll be bodies.
Just show up, just like, hey guys.
I'll just show up, exactly. I'll just show up.
No, I can't imagine season 4 going forward without the beautiful special effects
I don't
work
think
and the
you-
amazing food.
I think there's any food stylists out there like you, Janice. I don't know how they would do it.
Oh dear.
No, and I think a lot of us are very much hoping we get to see what happens coming up next. But I wanted to thank you guys so much for coming and for answering these questions and talking to us.
Very welcome.
Yeah, your work is,
Yeah, thanks for letting me just jump in. I wasn't going to. I was just going to join the chat, but here I am.
you'll never escape. We just draw you back in every time.
Lovely to see you guys. I can't wait to see you in real life on a show somewhere in the future in Cuba.
Cuba.
All
At
of
least
you.
they'll probably have a lot more light at that point.
Yeah.
We're going to shoot Cuba, but dark.
Yeah. Well, that's what, because I don't know if you were, if you heard that, you guys, Tenille and Francois, but Brian wants season 4 to take place in Cuba. Is it a different aesthetic? Hot and sweaty, bright and hot and sweaty. So
Sounds like a
It's
nightmare
hard for us to
to me.
do it if they shot in Cuba. Hard for us to work on it.
Nothing's gonna stick.
Or they'll shoot it in Toronto and just call it Cuba, in which case you'll have completely different challenges.
Perfect. I'm better with that.
And like West Virginia with the hat because it was so cold.
oh yeah,
West Virginia.
yeah.
It's Cuba and everyone has to wear shorts and they're all freezing.
Yeah, I'll go to Cuba.
Yeah. Let's go to Cuba anyway, even if there's no season 4.
Everyone goes to Cuba, just group trip Cuba. These scout locations, just tell them your scouting locations.
Yeah.
Something like that, checking out the place.
Yeah.
Thanks for contacting us and putting this on and inviting us to do this. So it's the first time for me being involved in anything Hannibal like this, you know. So thanks for reaching out.
Thanks for doing it. We really appreciate it. We really appreciated you letting us come into your studios a couple years ago. That was like a coup de grace. We were so excited, and thank you for coming and doing this Zoom chat with us.
You're
If
welcome.
anyone's got more questions, I mean, you can always shoot questions on Francois' Instagram or my Instagram. I'm more likely to answer through my Instagram, but I'm not really that much on Twitter. So I know a lot of you guys are Twitter people, but Francois, you know, I usually do a lot of the answering because Francois is more busy than I am. So there's nothing that, you know, got answered during this short period of time we had, then feel free to just go to the Instagram and just pop questions and I'll shoot back whatever I can help with.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And
Um,
we've had several people talk about how amazing your earrings are. So I just want to make sure that you had seen additional comments about how amazing Tenille's earrings are.
And I'll post, I have a girl called Ray Designs. She's in LA and she makes like jewelry with real bones. So I'll try to post something about that.
Janice, did you want to say something?
Still, I have nothing to add. No, it's just wonderful to see everybody, and thanks for having me. And yeah, great. Hope to see you soon.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.